Guys, welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, straight game TV. I'm coming to you today. Uh, man, man, the outright, blatant, uh, I would say, basically racist, um, in what has been allowed to happen over there at ESPN in regards to Pat McAfee and Aaron Rodgers. Um, in regards to the situation with Jimmy Kimball compared to LeBron James, and I would say Colin Kaepernick, ladies and gentlemen. Alphonse Weebe, what's happening? June Askew. Yeah, we going somewhere different, but somewhere just as important today. Miss Matthew, what's happening? We going somewhere different. I don't know how many of y'all been paying attention to the Pat McAfee show, him bringing Aaron Rodgers on there. ESPN has went out of its way um, to basically I don't know if you guys remember when LeBron James had spoke up in regards to the situation with Colin Kaepernick and said something about Donald Trump and um, and the lady on Fox had told LeBron James basically to shut up and dribble, right? And in other words, also they've told him, basically, stick to sports. Don't, they're the people that worked over at ESPN, stick to sports. If they were black, it was basically, stick to sports. We don't want to you covering politics or talking about politics. But that situation, when it comes to its white employees, mainly Pat McAfee, it seems to be a different road that he's on, and where he can talk about um, politics, not only politics, but he can talk about and have guests on in Aaron Rodgers who make defamatory statements about Jimmy Kimmel that are not even true. And the cold part about it is not apologize or have Aaron Rodgers not apologize. Let me give you some context. So Aaron Rodgers is on Pat McAfee show, and they're talking about various things and talking about politics, talking about all of the things that um, you know black commentators wouldn't be allowed to talk about, or probably would have been fired for talking about, right? And this is the thing, because when we talk about media and we look at media and the things that people say and how things are kind of like polarized in the media, if you will, I think this is very important. When it comes to us, it's stick to sports, shut up and dribble. That's that coded language, you know what I mean? When it comes to, black folks and athletes, basically to remain silent. You know what I mean? We understand that, they got certain kinds of like dog whistles and things like that, when it comes to us. Like they say, they use the words like uh you know they're woke, or you know what I mean, various other terminologies basically that mean, in referring to black people, if you will, right? So Pat McAfee and Aaron Rodgers, who's injured right now, NFL player. Pat McAfee, a former NFL kicker, right? They're basically paying McAfee millions of dollars because he has this right wing audience, right? And so they get on there and they just go to town, like like the good old boy network. You know what I mean? And so much so that basically the other day, um, they had been going back and forth. Jimmy Kimmel, Aaron Rodgers had made a statement in regards to Jimmy Kimmel being affiliated with Epstein. You know the you know the guy who was the pedophile guy, and all of this stuff that was going on with him before he had committed suicide in New York in prison, right? And which those that accusation has been unfounded and untrue. And so Jimmy Kimmel on his show, and mind you, they're both under Disney, under the Disney umbrella. right? Pat McAfee over on ESPN, Jimmy Kimmel over on ABC, and it's both companies. The parent company is Disney, right? And so Pat McAfee is allowed to bring Aaron Rodgers on his show, which is supposed to be talking about sports, for Aaron Rodgers to then allege that Jimmy Kimmel had something to do with Epstein and was an associate or an affiliate of Epstein, basically affiliating him with the vile acts of Epstein, if you will, right? And so, which have been unfounded and untrue. But nevertheless, um, Pat McAfee and Aaron Rodgers were allowed to get away with it. And so at the end of the show, Pat McAfee basically abruptly ended the show, basically saying that Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be back, and he was done, and so on and so forth. So now, the very next day, Pat McAfee then has Aaron Rodgers back on the show after all of the backlash. The cold part about it is that the basically the president, Jimmy Pitaro, called Jimmy Kimmel up on the phone and tried to smooth the situation over, right? But even worse than that, Pat McAfee still has his job, right? If you remember, Jamel Hill, right? She was suspended for 2 weeks for something she said on Twitter, eventually losing her job as a sports commentator in regards to that, right? You remember LeBron James basically saying something in regards to the Colin Kaepernick situation, Colin Kaepernick taking the knee, ESPN and all of these other people went out of their way when Trump had got into office, and they were talking about how people couldn't say this, people were, they didn't want them to be partisan in the things that they were talking about, and so on and so forth. But all of a sudden now, one day, Pat McAfee says, hey, I'm done. Jimmy Kim, I'm sorry, Aaron Rodgers won't be back on my show, and so on and so forth. But the very next day, he brings Aaron Rodgers back after Aaron Rodgers made those statements and still has not apologized to Jimmy Kimmel for making those false and defamatory statements in which Jimmy Kimmel had threatened to sue. You know what I mean? And not, like I said, and I'm thinking that if he was going to sue, he was going to sue, Disney as well as Aaron Rodgers, because they're allowing him to make these crazy statements that are not backed by any facts, right? And so when you think about it, everything that's happened, in the recent years in regards to black athletes, black sports commentators, we know for a fact that there's no black sports commentator that would have been allowed to say things like that. But it even gets worse. It even gets worse. And I'm gonna read this part from Deadspin, right? Because Pat McAfee actually went on to attack one of the head executives at ABC. I'm sorry, at ESPN, right? Check this out. Funny enough, it says that not even the wildest thing that has happened as that occurred when McAfee called out one of his bosses. Now, there are some people actively trying to sabotage us from within ESPN, McAfee said. More specifically, I believe Norby Williamson is the guy who's attempting to sabotage our program, said McAfee. Williamson is one of the most powerful people at ESPN and serves as their executive editor and head of event and studio production. And according to who you ask or believe, Williamson has a long history of doing what McAfee accused him of, right? This is the craziest part. And then they're going to just combat that from the rat every single time. He's calling Norby Williamson a rat. Pat McAfee is calling one of the executives at ESPN a rat. And he still got his job. Not only does he still has his job, right? But he said he wasn't going to bring Aaron Rodgers back on the program again after Aaron Rodgers made the statement in regards to Jimmy Kimmel, right? But actually brung Aaron Rodgers back on the very next day to talk about football. You see the break that Pat McAfee getting that Jameel Hill was not allowed to get. You see the break that Pat McAfee's getting that when LeBron James made a statement in regards to in support of Colin Kaepernick, in regards to Donald Trump or whoever it was, when they told LeBron James to shut up and dribble, they didn't tell Pat McAfee that. They didn't tell Aaron Rodgers that. So basically what it says to me is that ESPN only wanted the shut up and dribble and stick to sports to only apply to black athletes and black sports commentators, because Pat McAfee over there, he got a free reign. Not only does he have a free reign, but he also has the ability to call out one of his bosses. Not only to call out one of his bosses, but I'm gonna read it again, right? Y'all, are y'all hearing me and understanding what I'm saying is going on right now? See, a lot of this flies over our head because we so enamored with sports and who got the most points and who got the best record, right? But like I said, once again, if it was a black a sports commentator basically criticizing a Norby Williamson in the same way as Pat McAfee, you can best believe that they would be fired. You can best believe that they would be fired, And so, like I said, he's not only criticizing his boss, right? But he's calling his boss a rat. This is crazy. This is actually crazy. And so, like I said, when you think about what's been going on, and Colin Kaepernick, he can't even get a job. And Colin Kaepernick was a proficient quarterback, right? But McAfee can come in over at ESPN, have this show, Aaron Rodgers come on there and make false accusations in regards to Jimmy Kimmel, who was supposed to be McAfee's colleague, right? And then after the smoke starts, McAfee says, I'm done, and Aaron Rodgers not going to be on the program no more. But the very next day, he brings Aaron Rodgers back. So tell me, is McAfee more powerful than ESPN? Right? Is he more powerful than ESPN? Because as well as I know, that it would not be tolerated if an African American said the same thing and it did the same thing. He wouldn't even have the power to be able to bring the guest back on the day afterwards, right? So as we can see, there is a stark contrast when it comes to being white, and you have a show, you can say whatever you want, or versus when you're black. You can't say, and not only that, but you got LeBron James, who's probably made the NBA and these magazines and networks billions of dollars with his presence on the basketball court and other places, right? But tell LeBron, just shut up and dribble. We don't want to hear from you. But when McAfee and Aaron Rodgers can talk, you guys go on and you guys are good. Basically, you know what I mean? And they've been spewing all kinds of crazy stuff, about drugs, politics, vaccines, public safety, and all of these things. But yet this is supposed to be a sports show. Have y'all been paying attention? Right? And like I said, to be able to, what job do you know that you're able to criticize your boss, right? Like I said once again, what job do you know that you're able to do that? Right? I'm gonna read it to you again. And then we are just gonna combat that from a rat every single time. That's what McAfee said about his boss, Norby Williamson. I'm gonna read it again. Funny enough, that's not even the wildest thing that's happened, as that occurred when McAfee called out one of his bosses. Now, there are some people actively trying to sabotage us from within ESPN, McAfee said. More specifically, I believe Norby Williamson is the guy who is attempting to sabotage our program, said McAfee. Williamson is one of the most powerful people at ESPN and serves as their executive editor and head of event and studio production. And according to who you ask or believe, Williamson has a long history of doing what McAfee accused him of. And then it went on to say, and then we are just going to combat that from a rat every single time, added McAfee, right? So basically, McAfee is allowed, Pat McAfee is allowed to call his boss a rat, keep his job, stay on the network, allow his guests to make unfounded accusations in regard to Jimmy Kimmel somehow being affiliated with Epstein and Aaron Rodgers not apologize. And Pat McAfee keep his job. Wow. I thought they say white privilege didn't exist. Yeah. But well, you know what? They say freedom of speech, just watch what you say. But I guess that's just, you know what I mean? That only goes, pertains to certain people, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And like I say, Pat McAfee and Aaron Rodgers haven't been sticking to sports over there. They haven't been. Let that have probably been Shannon Sharp or somebody like that. He'd been fired. Let it have been Stephen A. Smith saying something like that about one of their bosses over at ESPN. He probably been fired. So like I said, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to this, but this caught my eye and I thought I had to speak on that. Yeah, Brittany Marie, it's clear as day. Like I said, once again, when we talk about just being fair, and being able to have freedom of speech and the basic freedoms that we all enjoy, I think this is something that's very important that needs to be talked about. Pat McAfee and Aaron Rodgers over there just making crazy statements and racking up the ratings, making these crazy statements for the people who live in conspiracy theory land and want to believe the most negative things about certain people, right? Yeah, this is what's going on. So like I said, I just thought I had to speak on this because I think it's very important, to just kind of see the double standard. The double standard is pretty evident. And when you talk about, black employees and the people that have been fired for even less, you know what I'm saying? And you kind of see who Pat McAfee is catering to, with his audience from that perspective. Yeah. And all of the things, the wild and crazy accusations that Aaron Rodgers has made over the years, we need to look at people for who they actually are and not actually what kind of sport they play and whether we agree whether their team is winning or losing or not. You know what I mean? And some of the things that they say. Like I said, he basically went on there and said that claiming that Jimmy Kimmel could have been listed in the court documents associated with Jeffrey Epstein's case, followed by McAfee basically saying that Rodgers was done as a guest for the season. After Aaron Rodgers made that statement involving Jeffrey Epstein, Pat McAfee said that Aaron Rodgers was done as a guest for the season, only for him to be on the show the very next day. And then they posted some crazy stuff about Martin Luther King Day, if you will. You see what I'm saying? So, like I said, most people have not been really paying attention to it. But like I said, when you think about what's going on and what's allowing to happen, and then being able, for McAfee, it seems like he's more powerful than the executives over there at ESPN. He calling them out. Pat McAfee calling Norby Williamson a rat. He calling his boss a rat, or one of his bosses a rat, if you will, right? And so, man, I don't know what world that they live in over there, but evidently they feel like they need Pat McAfee so much so that this is the funny part, that the president of ESPN, Jimmy Pitaro, actually called Jimmy Kimmel up on the phone to try to smooth the situation over. Now, how in the hell can you smooth a situation over like that when somebody make an accusation that he had something to do with Jeffrey Epstein, or should have been in the court papers with Jeffrey Epstein or something like that? How could you smooth that over? The only way that could be smoothed over is there would be a public apology from Aaron Rodgers based on the fact that he went on Pat McAfee's show and made the statement. Right? And then to turn around and Pat McAfee, then going and calling out his boss and being able to keep his job. I've seen people fired for way less than that, coming in work late, and so on and so forth. But like I said, once again, and like I said, more importantly, if we see something like this, when you see something like this happen, because a lot of people always like to say they colorblind and things of that nature when it comes to stuff like this. When you see stuff like this happen, you have to look at color, because you can't look at nothing else. You know what I mean? It like I said, if what's good for the goose is usually good for the gander, usually. But today, now these days, we living in different times. It's about clicks and views, and if the people that you're dealing with, they hold the same views as the people that are working for them, a lot of times things go overlooked, or they try to sweep it underneath the rug, if you will. So when you see stuff like this happen, don't let them tell you, oh, it's not about the color of a person's skin, because it usually is. Not all the time. But like I said, when you see the same thing happen, like I said with LeBron James, they went out of their way to criticize LeBron James for saying what he said. They went out of their way to criticize Colin Kaepernick for just standing up for injustice. He couldn't get a job no more. So once again, this Aaron Rodgers and Pat McAfee situation is very eye-opening, very eye-opening. And so once again, I just wanted to bring you guys this information. I don't know if, like I said, once again, if y'all paying attention or not. We so busy worried about who winning the game and what team we supporting and so on and so forth, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to bring you guys this information right here. Your boy DELRAY, Pat McAfee, Aaron Rodgers, allowed to keep their job at ESPN, or should I say Pat McAfee allowed to keep his job at ESPN after calling his boss a rat. Your boy DELRAY, straight game.